Texans are seemingly being offered educational freedom where Texas taxpayer dollars flow directly to your child's learning, except the fine print demands irreplaceable biometric identity as the price of entry. Texans are being tempted with $2,000, $10,000, or $30,000 per student. But lurking just before you hit upload on your application sits a clause. In faint, nonchalant lettering, most will miss, which states, by clicking the button below, you consent to Persona, our vendor, collecting, using, and utilizing its service providers to process your biometric information to verify your identity fraud, and improve Persona's platform in accordance with its privacy policy. Your biometric information will be stored for no more than 3 years. Let's unpack this legally binding language. You are not just authorizing a quick ID check. You're generating Persona, a third-party vendor and its shadowy network of unnamed service providers' broad license to capture, store, analyze, and share your facial geometry, fingerprints, voice prints, or whatever biometric template they extract for identity verification and fraud prevention. Sure, but that vague platform improvement clause, that opens the door to AI training, behavioral profiling, and data enhancement sold to the highest bidder. As a legal guardian, your single click binds you and your minors just like signing a field trip waiver or a medical consent form. You have surrendered their privacy rights too, exposing them to the same subcontractors whose identities, security standards, and data sharing practices remain a black box. Texas's Capture or Use of Biometric Identifier Act, QB, is now rendered powerless by your quick, trusting click of a button that gives all consent. No written policy details, no opt-out. You have waived protections under biometric privacy laws, handing over immutable data that, unlike a password, cannot be reset if breached. Convenience will be the end of us. You have found a way to pay for private school or homeschool thus far. Many of us scraping by, yes, but educating our children in freedom nonetheless. Why trade eternal liberty for fleeting funds? Is the money worth your family's permanent digital footprint? Now the money math unmasks the scam. $1 billion from Texas taxpayers, it sounds generous, but there are 6.6 million K-12 students, and that $1 billion barely covers 5% or 1 in 20 kids. Ironically, school-age children with disabilities in the state of Texas also represent 5% or 1 in 20 kids, and they are the funding's top priority, which means low-income private school or homeschool families with non-disabled children have virtually zero chance of receiving funding. If they truly liberated education, lawmakers would pony up tens of billions. They know the limits, they designed them. So why go to all the trouble of creating this not so helpful program? Because the reality is this was never created to help anyone. It's a lure to build a centralized database that never existed before. Every child's identity, guardian, school choice, now cataloged. You have pierced your own shield, handing government the map to every off-grid learner that they have envied. Why the lies? Ask AI or any search engine about the program's biometrics, and they deny it outright, a provable falsehood upon filling out the application yourself. Deception conceals motive. Texas is failing children with mental and physical disabilities in several well-documented ways, based on recent reports and federal findings. Here are just a couple of examples to scratch the surface. Regarding children's mental health crisis, Texas ranks last in the nation for access to children's mental health care. Last in the nation. Over 90% of kids treated for depression report suicidal thoughts, yet services are scarce. Special education shortages. So the state remains below the national average for special ed enrollment. Federal reviews found Texas illegally capped services, denying thousands tools like dyslexia support, leaving districts confused on legal duties. So then, if that is true, Texas's sudden emphasis on prioritizing disabled students in school freedom funding raises serious questions, especially when the program is paired with identity verification and biometric consent. Public schools already track disabled students, but private and homeschool families have historically remained outside that system. Now, those families are being drawn into a new state-linked process that creates records the government has never needed before. Given that official explanations about biometric requirements have been downplayed, the concern is not just about funding, it's about whether the real purpose is to centralize data on the most vulnerable children first. Now let's go ahead and look back to history. Nazi authorities framed the reporting as a way to provide children with disabilities access to state-run clinics as special treatment for their conditions. Parents were explicitly told their children would receive advanced medical attention in dedicated facilities. Doctors and midwives were instructed to encourage families to transfer their children for this care. The registration forms created the impression of benevolent medical intervention. In reality, this was a deception to build the list for the child euthanasia program. We cannot ignore history. Financial incentives fuel the fire. In San Antonio, Texas, in Northside ISD, the RFID badges slash absenteeism unlocking $2 million in state funds, dwarfing costs, while expelling resistor Andrea Hernandez for religious refusal, revoking her election rights and keycard magnet status. Schools deny amenities like libraries, cafeterias, and sports unless kids comply. It starts with lunch lines, creeps off to off-campus tracking, AI, pre-crime flagging, common with racial bias. This is behavioral conditioning, not education. Texas RFID stalks beyond campus gates. Children internalize. They think privacy is a myth and compliance is survival. As privacy warriors born, once facial recognition enters the classroom, kids will no longer be allowed to be kids. Schools dodge with chip-free badges, yet they still demand surveillance buy-in through forcing children to use that badge for other tracking purposes, such as scanning it for entry into the bathroom, cafeteria, or school bus. The school still tracks students' location when they scan the card. Texas has long claimed to support family choice by allowing homeschooling and private schooling with very little state interference. But that is very different from what this program is doing now. This is not just letting families opt out of the public system. It is pulling them into a state-run application process that requires identity verification, document upload, and biometric consent, which creates a record of who your children are, where they're educated, and what kind of services they receive. That is a privacy concern. Texas is not merely respecting parental choice, it is attaching that choice to data collection and oversight. For families who have intentionally protected their children's privacy by homeschooling or choosing private school, this program can feel less like assistance and more like a trade. Money in exchange for surrendering information the state has never been interested in before. While this program is not mandatory, neither was the worm the fish ate. But once the worm was accepted, so was the hook. Parents, I chose to delete my information line by line, as once you've created an online application, you do not have the option to delete it, which is another telling key to their intentions. For those who have already applied and been approved, you do not have to accept the funds. You can still pay for school the same way you always have. Homeschool fiercely, form private co-ops. Private schools, you can delist, opt out, broadcast the truth. Convenience tempts, but freedom endures. United we stand. But it's going to take every one of us. Our children's future is depending on it. Now that you know, what are you going to do about it?